And there we have it. Had to let y'all hear just a little taste of one of my mentors musically. I call him the sensei. The few times we interact on Twitter, he was actually my primary inspiration when I started, uh, especially when I started doing vocals in music, writing and performing. He was my number one, and still to this day, my number one favorite MC. He leads my favorite band of all time. But that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. Shouts out to my man Broken Suba. Shouts out to Josh Quinn Andrews. NK is here. Kira H, haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Center is here. Hippie Mo is in the place. Good to see you, brother. Wow, we got a lot of our VIPs are here tonight. So let's go ahead and jump right in. As always, I want to start with a few notes just to get the show kicked off and started. First, let's start by saying that I'm extremely excited. I'm always excited when I get to spend time with you all, which is why I usually have to do another more low key live stream after this one so that I can calm down and actually go to sleep. If you were here for the extra version part of this conversation last week, you understand why that's the case. As a very high extrovert, I get a lot of energy out of interacting with other people. So, uh, just to say a few things beyond just being excited, I'm always honored to be here with you all. I'm always honored that you would spend time listening to anything I have to say, whether it be coherent or not. Um, and just a few notes that I want to hip anyone that may be new. Hey, Taj Baloo, good to see you. Um, if anyone's new here, I want to make a few things clear right off the bat. First and foremost, uh, if you have questions, if you've been watching my content, if you're new to my content, if you follow me on Facebook and you watch and listen to and read everything that I do, no matter who you are in that spectrum of humanity, uh, any questions that you have, period, are welcome on these live streams. Okay, that's a policy that I have when I coach. That's a policy that I have when I do these kind of public live streams. Your questions do not have to be related to what we're talking about here tonight. I don't believe in you have to be on topic because one of you out there may be struggling with something extremely severe that someone on this stream may have the answer to, and I don't want you to go unhelped simply because we weren't talking about the challenge that you are facing. Right? I look at every one of these opportunities to come before you as a chance to serve you, to give you something of value that you can take back to your life, actually apply it, which is why I focus extremely heavily on not just hitting you with philosophy and concepts, but hitting you with practical application. Okay, that you can take back to your regular life, and whether it's earn more money, earn more respect, earn the interest of a friend or a love interest of someone that you have, whatever the thing is you're trying to accomplish, I want to equip you with the tools to be able to do it in a way that's mutually beneficial for you and the people in your community. Okay, so let's start there. Secondly, if you look here on screen, you will see that you can take the test that we're going to be talking about over here on the right hand side of the screen. All right, the hexacode test, or the big six. It's evolved from the big five. Right, the book that we use to have this discussion. All right, and I haven't done this on the previous shows, and I should have. The book where this test is broken down, this gives you the science behind the test. It helps you understand that about 80% of your personality is actually genetic. It's not your environment. It's not what you've learned. And about, say, 20%, 30% is learned behaviors. You'll find a lot of my tendencies are learned behaviors to adapt to different things that I've experienced in life. But about 70 to 80% of me is just genetically who I am, right? It's my default setting. The beautiful thing about the personality inventory that we're talking about here tonight is that it's measuring you on a spectrum. This is where you are today, and there's things about yourself that you can augment, that you can make adjustments to. And if you do any study of like um, epigenetic studies, when how our genes evolve over time, that certain consistent behaviors can adjust your genes, for example, right? But that's a whole separate discussion. But it's called the H Factor Personality. Link in the description where you can pick that book up. Highly recommend it. It shows you why this test is a very viable way to start to understand your personality, because it's not culturally biased. They were very big about that. I know a lot of you that listen to me are not from the United States. You're not even from Western culture. Many of you are from Eastern culture. This test is ubiquitous across the world, and they were very, very adamant about making sure that the test that they were giving out could apply to any human being, despite what culture you may come from. All right. Secondly, links to where you can take the test. It's totally free. It's not like the Myers Briggs, where the good version of the test is hidden behind a paywall, usually propped up by a third party organization that wants to sell you psychometrics education and wants you to go through their certification program where you pay anywhere from $600 to $3,000 to get yourself a certified version of this test. And they take you through how to understand it. Hilarious given how flawed the test is that still exists, but it still exists. I've been a part of it. I've been there. I'm not here to hate on it, but this test is completely free, being propped up by the people who are, it's kind of being crowdsourced, if you will. So there's that. There's the test. There is the H Factor book. Again, H Factor Personality. Highly recommend it. And it's a short read. It's a very small book. I don't know if that shows well on screen. Um, but my processor on my PC sucks, so the screen's probably going to freeze at some point because I only have a 4-core processor, and 4-core processor, along with all the other things I have on screen, doesn't like to deal with streaming, believe it or not. At least my 4-core processor does not. So don't worry, the audio will stay there. If the screen freezes, it will come back on. But what you're hearing is way more important than what you're seeing on the camera anyway. If you haven't picked that up about the types of broadcasts that I do, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up on YouTube on my phone as well so that I can keep up with your comments just in case we get shut down here, which is fine. Let's see. We've got Taj Baloo, Center. Andrew's here. What's up, man? Good to see you. Yeah, I've been doing other work, which my processor's probably like, all right, dude, enough's enough. Don't worry, it'll come back on at some point, but you'll still be able to hear me. Also, link in the description on your screen. As I've said in the previous calls on this topic, this live stream is the lessons that I'm using for a course called Understanding Your Personality. Right? And I'm building the Understanding Your Personality course into our Good Life Playbook education system, right? So what is the Good Life Playbook? Real simple. It's Netflix for your personal and professional development. So instead of being focused on entertaining you with Battlestar Galactica or TV shows, which are all great, it's about equipping you with knowledge sessions that are, one, highly interesting, easy to understand, right? And simple to implement. Okay, notice I didn't say easy to implement. Nothing that you want to accomplish in your life that's amazing is going to come easily. It's just not going to happen. All right. So I need you to keep that in mind as you go through this thing we call life, that everything that you want to accomplish, if it's something great, it's going to take a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears, right? And I know that's not what marketers would ever tell you to say on the internet. Always tell your customer that it's easy. This is the 3-step process for you to become a millionaire, because then people will buy that and they'll be grossly disappointed when it doesn't work, except for like the 3 guys who were probably halfway to $1 million already who joined the course or whatever. But this course is about helping you feed your soul, mind, and spirit with information and knowledge that's going to help project you, propel you forward to whatever these goals are that you're setting. In fact, the course is also very good at helping you set those goals. Many of you probably haven't figured out exactly what it is you want to do with your life. This course is designed to help you figure out what those things are and to understand that it's a process and that it's a journey. It's not about a singular destination. It's about a journey that you're going on and equipping you with the knowledge, the skills, the abilities, and the strategies to actually go out there and accomplish it, right? So I don't tell people to chase their dreams. I tell people to catch their dreams. And you catch your dreams, certainly by understanding concepts and principles, but you catch your dreams by understanding practical application and execution, which is what this course is designed to do. So it's highly interesting. We talk about things like understanding your personality, which is tonight's discussion. We talk about things like building unbreakable confidence. And a number of people struggle with insecurity and a lack of confidence, a lack of self-worth and self-compassion, which, by the way, spoiler alert, one of the keys to self-confidence is self-compassion first. Uh, and it's a huge thing that we talk about in that course. You have the 69 pillars of success, which many of you have been through that program. Like I've said on all of these talks, we had a gentleman hit me up on email and say, hey, thank you for your courses. I've been going through them for the last year, and I increased my income by $20,000 per year as a result of the things that you've been teaching. So thank you, to which I said, that's awesome. Thank you for letting me know. I'm glad to see that it's having an effect. All right, so all of that to say, this talk that we're having tonight, if you want to reference it after it's live tonight, you need to be a part of the Good Life Playbook, the Netflix of personal development. Link in the description where you can sign up. It's real simple. You'll go to the website. It gives you a list of all the benefits of the program, and then it asks for your email address. You put your email address in, you get an automatic email that says, hey, here's more details about the benefits. If you're in, just respond to this email and say I'm in. I will get that personally and then begin an interaction with you to get you set up, to get you access. We are currently in beta, so I am handling all the memberships personally. Right? I'm not sending you through an automated system because I want to work with each and every one of you individually to make sure that your experience is as top notch as we can make the experience for you getting into it. I always want to take care, special care of my early adopters, right? And by the way, the program's $12 a month. When we get out of the beta test here very soon, it's going to go up to $100 a month. But those of you who get in at $12 a month will never see that price increase. That's going to be for the folks who aren't the early adopters. So don't drag your feet. Enough about that. Let's get into tonight's discussion. And in so doing, I need to pull up one more thing here on my phone. Feel free to leave me comments. Let me know how you're doing tonight. If you are indeed as excited to be here as I am. I doubt that that's possible. I'm pretty dang fired up. Let's go to my drives here. We'll go here. There. Excellent. So I'll be jumping back and forth until my PC unlocks here, so bear with me. It takes me a second to get to your comments. All right, so the audio is good, says Kira. All right, so understanding your personality, the hexacode test. Tonight we're talking about the domain of agreeableness. And if you saw the email that I sent out to any of the mailing lists that I have that you may or may not be on, we talked about, have you ever wondered why so many relationships fail? Now, I'm not ignorant or arrogant enough to sit here and tell you that this is the only personality facet or domain that affects relationships. Obviously, they all do. But I've noticed in my dealings with the internet that a great number of people obviously score very low in this category. And scoring very low in this category, as you'll see, can make it challenging to get along with other people. Although, as we always say, scoring low isn't automatically a bad thing. It's just something to be mindful of. So let's go ahead and read the definition of what it means for you all to be agreeable. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up now. Let's see. All right, so agreeableness versus anger. Persons with very high scores on the agreeableness scale forgive the wrongs that they have suffered, are lenient in judging others, are willing to compromise and cooperate. Back on. Excelente. Oh, wow, it just closed my, it just outright closed my hexacode test. That's not fun. Just screw you. All right, here we go. All right, now I can read it here. Answer your comments. Reading Dave, what's up, man? Okay, so agreeableness versus anger. So we're right here on screen if you guys want to keep up with me. Persons with very high scores on the agreeableness scale forgive the wrongs they have suffered, are lenient in judging others, are willing to compromise and cooperate with others, and can easily control their temper. Conversely, persons with very low scores on this scale hold grudges against those who have harmed them, are rather critical of other shortcomings. If you follow my podcast, and I highly recommend you do, link in the description, I had a topic on your business or your professional career may be suffering because you are too quick to judge other people. Spoiler alert. Most humans are too quick to judge other people. We're going to talk about that tonight and how you can overcome that. Uh, you are rather critical of others' shortcomings, are stubborn in defending your point of view. You feel anger readily in response to mistreatment. Now, out of the gate, it sounds like, well, if you score really high, that must be good. And if you score really low, that must be bad. But let me caution you against thinking in those extremes. Okay? Obviously, someone who scores really low in this, holding grudges and being highly judgmental of others, can be a bad thing. But there can be times where being stubborn in defending your point of view can be a good thing, right? Especially if you are standing up, let's say, against a type of injustice that someone else is either committing against you or against other people. Having that type of stubbornness can be a good thing, right? Feeling anger readily in response to mistreatment. I think that one is a little bit harder to quantify simply because certain things set off different types of people. Right? My family would tell you, like with me, for example, that I'm pretty patient with most people, but there are certain things that can set me off immediately. Right? And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about more. We'll talk about it more from your perspective. You can take a look at my scores here. I score a 4.56, which is relatively high and quite a bit higher. You can see that the median score for most people in agreeableness are in the threes, mid threes to upper twos, right? And I'm scoring 4+ across the board, right? So just because I score high doesn't necessarily mean that's a good thing, right? The fact that I don't hold grudges, that I'm quick to forgive, I might be too quick to forgive somebody about something, especially if you're talking about in a professional setting. I might be quick to kind of let somebody off the hook, like let's let that ride, and it could be someone that's killing the operation because I'm not putting my foot down and I'm not standing firm and being stubborn about something that I think is right. You know, in my first home, my bedroom was a color called mauve, which is basically pink and brown mixed together into this weird kind of purplish light pink on the wall. And the reason why my room was mauve is because I don't care. I'm agreeable. I'm, and you'll see here I score extremely high in flexibility. There's an old saying I've always attributed it to Gandhi, but I've never been able to prove that he was the one who actually said it. But it's he or she who cares most wins. I don't care about a lot of things. You're going to find that that's very true with me in particular. There's, the sphere of things that I give a legitimate care about in life is a very small circle of things that I'm just not affected by outside of that circle. So I have a tendency to be very agreeable, very flexible, simply because I don't have a vested interest in a ton of things. Okay, but you might, and that could be a good thing depending on, like, if you're running for political office. This is why I would suck at running it for political office, for example, because I'm usually pretty open. You'll see next week, or in 2 weeks, you'll see when we talk about openness. I'm pretty open to other people's points of view and trying to figure out, okay, what makes them feel this way? Am I married to my ideals? There are some ideals that I'm married to, but very few, which means I don't really care. I don't get in the fight that other people get into politically or socially. Like, because either way it went, it wouldn't affect me directly. So you'll find that I'd be a terrible politician because I'd be like, that's fine. I don't care. If that's what they want to do, get in there. Right? So you can start to see scenarios where being extremely agreeable can be a positive. It makes me easy to get along with. Um, but in certain situations, professional, social, it could be a detriment to me or to the people that I serve. All right, so let's talk about forgiveness. So think about yourself. If you've taken the test, where did you score? Here, you can leave me a comment below if you took the test and you know your score. But the reason why I brought up relationships is I find that, especially when I was doing a lot of Myers-Briggs content and people kept asking me, why do I keep attracting narcissists? And I'd give them a dark triad test and they score really high for narcissism. And they, not like narcissistic personality disorder, but they score higher than the average bear in narcissism. And they score very low in agreeableness. Well, it's like you're a self-absorbed jackass. That's why you keep attracting what you are like. or they score really low in social boldness or self-esteem in the extroversion factor. So they're attracting what they think they deserve because of their own personal insecurities. They project that onto other people, right? But let's talk about forgiveness here in agreeableness. So the forgiveness scale assesses one's willingness to feel trust and liking toward those who may have caused one harm. Right? So how easy is it for you to trust and like someone that's hurt you? Right? For me, that's very hard. Trust does not come easy. Like I'm willing to trust somebody with things that I don't care about, and that's where my scores don't exactly jive with how I behave all the time, right? Because what's causing my score to be high is because I don't care about this thing. Like, yeah, certainly I'll trust you with something that doesn't matter to me, because if you screw it up, it doesn't affect me in a way that I'm emotionally tied to, right? So that's why I think I've taken this test. I don't think this is my most recent results, and my agreeableness was actually quite a bit lower than what you see here, but we'll roll with it just for the sake of the discussion. Willingness to feel trust and liking toward those who may have caused one harm. So, is it easy for you to start liking people again after they've hurt you? Is it easy for you to trust them again after someone's betrayed you? Low scores tend to hold a grudge. Are you the type of person that holds a grudge? I know a lot of people like that, and they're vocal about it. Usually, people that hold grudges are very vocal. Like, I hold grudges. Like, I'm just letting you know. Like, okay, I don't plan to do anything that's gonna cause you to hold a grudge, but knock yourself out. Um, Holding a grudge against those who have offended them, right? Whereas high scores are usually ready to trust others again and to reestablish friendly relations after having been treated badly. I am usually more inclined just to leave you alone if you treat me badly. I certainly don't like you again. Uh, if there was an unintentional wrong done, that's different, obviously, than somebody um, that's quite a bit different than somebody like intentionally doing me wrong. Like people who have intentionally done me wrong or done something wrong in principle, to me, it's like, yo, I just don't f with them anymore. I don't have to like them or dislike them. I don't let them into my circle. You'll find that my circle of family and friends is very, very tight and it's very, very small. I don't have. I'm not a social butterfly, social media influencer going to parties and hugging everybody. I'm not that dude. Right? My inner circle is very small, and it takes a lot of blood to get into that circle. Let's go into gentleness. All right, so I'm seeing people posting scores here. Let's see. Dave is in the over 100%. That does not surprise me, Dave. In working with you in coaching, your scoring agreeableness last you took it was 2.88. Josh Quinn says on forgiveness I scored 2.75, which is the median. Yep. Yeah, hip. I've had the same thing happen to me, dude. Suba is 4.3 agreeable. I can see that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Excellent. All right, let's go into gentleness. The gentleness scale assesses a tendency to be mild and lenient in dealings with other people. Low scores tend to be critical in their evaluations of others, whereas high scores are reluctant to judge others harshly. Okay, so if you score high in gentleness, you're probably not a very judgmental person. I am usually put off by very judgmental people, and I'll tell you why. I was in a counseling session, a mental health therapy session, once upon a time, and I was listening to this young guy share this pretty dark story about something he had done that had gotten him in some trouble. And at the end of him sharing it, because you could tell it was a little bit hard for him to share it and be honest and be vulnerable in a group of people. Um, at the end of it, he said, "You guys don't judge me." And I said, "The only people that judge other people are people that are not fully self-aware themselves and how much they have their own personal propensity to be vile and evil, right? Like people who are overly judgmental, and this is a personal belief of mine. I haven't quite studied this enough to say it definitively. I'd be willing to listen to psychologists or I'd be willing to listen to PhDs explain to me why it might be wrong or why it might be situational. But I have experienced that people who are overly judgmental, one of two things is true. They hate themselves, and so they project that out. They're just judgmental of themselves, and then they put it on everyone else because misery loves company. Or they're completely blind to how shitty they are as a human, so they just crap on everybody else, not realizing that they are just as bad, if not worse, than the people that they're criticizing. And what they do is they try to tear other people down to make themselves look and feel better. And to me, that's the definition of a coward, right? That is the definition of a coward, is someone that says, and I have to check because children do this because they don't know better. They're not cowards. They haven't learned that in order for you to go up the social rung, you need to actually be awesome, not talk about why you're more awesome than someone else. I just had to correct my son tonight over something he said about another kid. I said, that's not cool. I said, I don't talk about, I can destroy you in that category of life. We're talking about sports. I said, but you don't see me walking around talking about you're not good at sports because I'm way better than you. I said, you're learning. He's like, yeah, you're right. I probably, like, it's anyone that's going to tear someone else down to make themselves look better is a coward, period. Right. And I've found that folks that need to be judgmental usually are very judgmental of themselves, and misery loves company, or they're tearing others down to make themselves look good because they're insecure and they really don't have any other way to make themselves look or feel significant, right? And my thing is, if you want people to think you're awesome, be effing awesome, and start with believing that you can be awesome, not having to tear other people down because you suck, and you suck just a little bit less than them. Right. So judgmental people for me are very, they put me off. Like, you can see my score in gentleness. I think I scored relatively. Yeah, I scored a 4.5 in gentleness. Now, here's the caveat though. Mild and lenient in dealings with other people. Yes, but I can also be very curt, very direct, and sometimes seemingly harsh. But it's usually, if I'm being that, it's either to protect somebody who's being aggressed by someone who is judgmental or someone who is trying to negatively affect someone, or I'm trying to square somebody away and they need a little bit of tough love. Like, I don't want you to think gentleness means, oh, he's just the big teddy bear, because he's not. Like, no. Like, if you F with someone I care about, I will shoot you in the face, figuratively speaking. You know? So don't take it as, oh, you're gentle, meaning you're soft. It's not the same thing. It's dealing with, how do you deal with other people. I have a tendency to be lenient with other people because I know how dark and deep my propensity for being vile. Now, I don't act on it 99% of the time, thank God, because I would be freaking Hitler if I did. But I know that the capacity is there, and it scares me. So that's why I try to kind of overdo the right thing. Right. So think about that for yourself. You score really low on gentleness. Start thinking: are you in that category of people who's you're really really judgmental because you're really just too hard on yourself, and you need to learn how to be gentle with you and learn some self compassion, which is one of the lessons in our Unbreakable Confidence course. Like, you're never going to build true confidence until you learn how to build. You're never going to build true self confidence until you learn how to build self compassion. It doesn't exist. And until you get out of the game of harshly judging yourself for everything that you do wrong or imperfectly, you're never going to have confidence, because you're always going to be tearing yourself down or saying, oh, everything I did, it's not good enough. I have to keep going. Right? That's how you see all these crazily successful people commit suicide, because it's never good enough to satiate their self-hatred. And that self-hatred, while it propelled them to be amazing, it also was killing them from the inside out. Right? So you want to deal with that. Next, we've got flexibility. The flexibility scale assesses one's willingness to compromise and cooperate with others. How willing are you to compromise with others? How willing are you to cooperate with others? Even when, like, if you listen to my podcast titled, What If They're Right? Which is a lesson that I teach on how to be more agreeable, right? When it's necessary. Now, there's some times where you need to stand your ground and be like, yo, get out of my face. This is wrong, right? Sometimes, like, there was a guy, and I was coaching my son's basketball league last summer. And there was this parent, and these are kids. They're not even teenagers. They're little kids. And one of the parents for the other team was yelling at the kids on that team about how terrible my son and his friends were on his team. And he's like, they're terrible. They cannot. And yes, he was Indian. That's how he sounded. They are terrible. They cannot dribble. They cannot shoot. What are we doing? And he just kept going. And finally, he says something that was wrong. And I was like, yo, Slim. And I'm literally this far away from him. I'm like, yo, Slim, shut your mouth. You're wrong. And he jumped like, oh, I am very sorry. I said, yeah, you are sorry. Shut up and let the kids play. And I didn't say it, but I was like, you jackass. Right? Like, there's sometimes where you got to stand your ground and not be agreeable and let somebody know you're being an asshole to children. Like, how shitty is your life that you're crapping on children to try to make your kids play better in a summer league basketball game that doesn't even mean anything other than your kid learning how to be a team player and learning how to win with some effing grace, which, by the way, we beat their team down completely by the time it was over. Thank God. You know what I mean? So those are things that you want to think through. Yeah, it's great to compromise and cooperate and to be agreeable and gentle, but sometimes you need to be the asshole, right? And you need to be comfortable and not judgmental of yourself when it's appropriate to be the asshole. I tell my family that all the time. All right, low scores are seen as stubborn and are willing to argue, whereas high scores avoid arguments and accommodate other suggestions, even when they may be unreasonable. Now that's where I draw the line. If your argument is unreasonable and it's something that I care about the outcome of, then no, we're not doing that. Let's shut it down. I'm gonna argue. But if you're debating me on something that I really don't care that much about, it's like when people argue with me about liberals versus conservatives. I don't care. There's two sides of a multi-sided coin. They're fine. You guys like this version of something. You guys like this version of something. I don't care about either one of those things you guys are screaming about. So I'm more down the middle when it comes to a lot of things, right? So I am less inclined to be like, yeah, you liberals are all conservatives wrong. I don't care. Especially when you're talking about the politicians play a role to get votes. I mean, they got to do what they got to do. So, flexibility. If you score really low, take a look at that. And I've said many times that in relationships, especially if you are a highly highly inflexible person, look into that and look at the areas where you're not flexible, because chances are there's certain areas where you should not be flexible. Right? There are certain areas with my children, we have boundaries that you just don't cross, and I'm not going to be flexible. If you don't accomplish your chores, your homework, and your grades aren't right, you don't get access to your privileges. I don't care how gentle and nice and kind and agreeable I am. You're not getting that privilege without meeting the standard, because I'm doing you a disservice as a father to let you just run amok doing all the fun stuff without having to put in the work to get there. I'm teaching you that the world works in a way that it does not work. If you think you're just going to get everything you want without having to put in blood, sweat, and tears, it's a lie, right? So, but if you're completely inflexible with everything, you're just disagreeable all the time, take a look at that, because it's something you may want to adjust. Like if you're scoring a 1 in agreeableness, there are certain situations in life where a 1 could be a good thing, but not very many. And you'll probably want to, even if your general default setting is to disagree, read a book like How to Win Friends and Influence People and really take to heart. You'll find that if you're a very low scorer in agreeableness, you'll relate very much to the stories about Benjamin Franklin, who was a ridiculous asshole. But when you read about him in history, he's this suave, soothsaying, smooth talking negotiator. He wasn't that. He learned how to be that because he had mentors that worked with him to become not a flaming asshole. Because he was a flaming asshole, and one of his mentors had to stop him after a social gathering. Like, dude, you are an ass. What's wrong with you? And Benjamin Franklin argues back with him, like, yo, screw you, dog. I was right. He's like, yeah. And nobody wanted to be around you, even though you were right. Like, sometimes it's okay to just shut your mouth and let people be wrong. Right? That was a lesson I had to learn, going back to the unreasonable piece of flexibility. So if you're scoring a 1, you want to bring in some mentorship, some folks to help you. That book is a good place to start. I always tell people, if you can't hire a mentor, you can't find a mentor, start reading books. In fact, we're going to, where is it? This is one of the secret books I talk about in our Secret Knowledge Society. I don't talk about that much on these videos. A number of you watching are in our Secret Knowledge Society. This is one of our secret books. A lot of what I've been teaching in that group comes straight out of this book. So many things that I've been learning about the way I see the world and then getting it validated by some of the greatest minds in human history captured in this book. And I'm like, whoa, this genius person. Like this book has started to show me that I'm not as insane as I thought I was. And my doctor kind of backed it up too. She's like, you're fine. Calm down. Um, to see and to see so many of the things we're dealing with in life right now happened exactly like this during World War II, happened like this 2,000 years ago. Yeah, human beings don't change that much. We do the same thing seemingly over and over and over again. If you're interested in getting in the Secret Knowledge Society, you can see me at the end of this talk. We can talk about it. It's all it is a Patreon contribution of $30 or more a month. Now, the patience scale. Let's get in. So let me interject something here with flexibility with my wife. My wife is stubborn with things that she is adamant about. And you'll find that if you saw us in a relationship, you'll see that I acquiesce a lot to the things that she wants to do because she has vested interest in certain things where my level of interest is just like, I may disagree with her, but it's like, I don't care enough to really stand my ground. And I know she's going to be stubborn about this. Like we had a disagreement about um, one of my sons with ADHD and whether we should medicate him or not medicate him. I was adamantly against it. And she pressed it and 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 pressed it. It turns out I'm glad she kept pressing it because it was the right move. Right? It ended up being the right move for my son. Um, and had she not been that stubborn, my anti-drug, they're trying to hook kids on crack, it's conspiracy theorist mind. Uh, my son would have been done a disservice if she hadn't been stubborn. So, like I said, having a little less flexibility can be a great thing. If it's down in the zeros, then you want to start looking at it. All right, let's see. Alyssa is here. Josh Quinn Andrews says, um, my score on gentleness is 2.5, and I do sometimes judge myself. In fact, for example, I recently realized I might had been going through what is imposter syndrome. Hey, Alyssa. Good to see you. All right, let's talk about patience. The patience scale assesses a tendency to remain calm rather than to become angry. Low scores tend to lose their tempers quickly, whereas high scores have a high threshold for feeling or expressing anger. Now, think about yourself in that context. The one caveat I want to give you here is there are always going to be outlier situations where, of course, something is going to take you from 0 to 100 in terms of being angry because it's one of your red buttons, right? Like if I saw like that parent at the basketball game who was yelling at kids, zero patience. I went from zero. I didn't start with, "Hey, sir, could you please keep it down?" I just waited and waited and waited, and then I yelled in his mouth, like, "Dude, I will light you on fire if you say one more word about these kids." Like that's a red button for me. You don't f with children, man. You just don't do that. You don't tear children down as a grown man, which led me to understand that he's just a grown 12-year-old um, who never grew out of that type of competitive insecurity. And so look at your life and start to evaluate. Don't just look at, oh yeah, yesterday I went from 0 to 100 because something pissed me off. There's going to be certain principled things that, and usually you will find that what sets you off to go 0 to 100 in terms of anger is something that betrays or steps on one of your values. They're asking you to compromise one of your values. Many of you, if you've been around me for a while, you've heard me tell the story of when I first came home from the military, shortly after being in combat, so I'm still kind of reeling. And I'm in the gym, and I come out of the locker room, and so there's the young lady working the desk that works there. Usually, the men and women that worked at the gym were high school or college kids who were home for the summer, and they were working there. And so I come out of the locker room, and the young lady that's working the desk, kind of gives me the look like, "Don't walk away. Just please stay where you are," kind of like motioning to me. So I hung tight. And I look to my left, and there's a grown man, a very Napoleon complex, small man, but grown, with his seemingly tween child, screaming at this young lady just about, my yoga class was canceled. Which, first of all, makes you sound like a bitch. Like, you're a grown man yelling about your yoga class being canceled. You just listen. I love yoga. I'm not saying doing yoga makes you a bitch. Yoga is awesome, but you're screaming about a yoga class. You're just automatically, as a man, you're a bitch. You're a Mitch man bitch. And so he's screaming at this woman like, how do we pay money to be here, and you have to tell us when stuff's closed? And she was trying to express to him, I fully understand why you're upset because you weren't notified. But please understand that has nothing to do like with me. I don't handle that. I don't run that part of the gym. I'm watching the weight room. There's people who watch the weight room. There's people who do the pool. There's a whole separate entity of folks you should be screaming at about your stupid yoga class. And so my concern was that he was going to put his hands on her. And it was a slim chance. I'm like, there's no way. But he was so irate that I'm like, this dude might get. And like for her to be like, yo, don't move. Because she was scared. And I'm like, well, she thinks she's about to be accosted. That's a 1 to 100. If he had put his hands on her, he was going to get his face put. Like I was literally thinking through what I was going to tell the police. I started thinking through, okay, I need to help the police understand that he attacked this woman, and it was at that time that I grabbed him by his back and the back of his head and put his face through the drywall to calm him down. Like that was the vision in my brain that was going to happen. Now, probably I wouldn't have put his face through the drywall because I didn't want to get sued, but I would have subdued him. He would have been hands behind the back and face to the ground, and I would have told her to call the police and just said, I'm not letting you up until you chill the F out. Like I was prepared to do that and explain to the police and file a report like I had gone through. That's 1 to 100 for me. If you put your hands on someone who's defenseless that can't defend themselves against you, nope. You're gonna get an ass beaten in public. Sorry. Right? And a lot of my friends are the police officers in these towns. So hopefully one of them that showed up would have been a guy I knew. Like, hey, Mike, come get him. So I tell that story just to help illustrate for you that don't think just because there are things that set you off that you immediately are just a high-tempered person. There are things that certainly can make even can make Gandhi. You know what I mean? So, I'm sure the Dalai Lama has something that would piss him off if he saw it happening. But are you constantly going 1 to 100? Well, then you're probably scoring pretty low in patience, right? And do you remain calm in tense situations? And that's something that actually my level of patience, if we go back to my score, in patience, I score almost max. And it's actually worked against me in the professional world because I've been in what was high stress situations for other professionals that I was working with, specifically one of the vice presidents in a company that I used to run. And they were just livid that I was not excited and frustrated and angry and scared like they were about something. Like what they were talking about wasn't a big deal. Like I came from a business where people were trying to blow me up and shoot me in the face. Like this thing that they were worried about wasn't a big deal to me, and so they took it as, oh, he doesn't care. He's apathetic to the operation. It's like, no, I just understand the risks in a different way than you do, and I'm just not gonna get bent out of shape because someone might have an accident and they might sue the company. Oh no, if they do, we have lawyers and insurance. It's gonna be okay. So those are things that you want to look at yourself and evaluate. All right, if you're looking at your scores, but I stress this every week, and I'll continue to stress it. Do not look at your scores and start to turn it into some kind of negative judgment if your score is below the median or it's too low. If your score is lower than you would like, or even if it's higher, like some of these for me, I know I've retaken this test and my agreeableness is not this high. Specifically, gentleness is not a 450. It's probably in the high threes. I might have been rushing through the test when I took this one. But neither here nor there. The point is, if something's higher or lower than you want it, just see it as an opportunity to grow, not as a situation where you need to start becoming overly judgmental of yourself. Like if you're realizing today, yo, I'm really a disagreeable person, good. Now you're aware of it. Now you can start to make adjustments. And remember, like we said in this book, a link in the description where you can get it. A lot of your disposition is genetic. You were born like that for some of it. Like Benjamin Franklin was born a natural asshole. I guarantee you. He had to adjust some of his behavioral tendencies to go against and filter his genetic predisposition. All right. He had to override his tendency because I have that tendency. When people say stuff that's just dead wrong, it's like sometimes I just have to remember just let people be wrong. They don't they don't want to know. Like my wife used a word the other day and like I almost corrected her. I'm like, I know what she meant and we're the only two people in the conversation. Correcting her is just gonna make her feel like, dude, you know what I meant when I said it. I would come across as that condescending know-it-all, right? And because I don't have a desire to be a know-it-all or to one-up people, but my genetic predisposition, because I'm highly competitive with myself, and I'm highly competitive to be really, really good at things that I do and be right. Sometimes it comes across as me kind of lording it over other people or being overbearing. It's not my intent, but because I'm aware of that, I can adjust. I can't necessarily change my default settings, right? If I'm a crazy high extrovert, I'm not going to become an introvert, but I can behave more introverted if I'm in a room full of introverts to create an environment where that tribe feels more comfortable with me in the room and thus may be more willing to establish trust and rapport with me and communicate with me. I mean, think about being in a business meeting. If I'm a crazy high extrovert sitting across the table from someone who's highly introverted and very reserved, and I'm just all in their face, and yeah, and I'm touching on them like they're gonna be like, this guy's crazy. Please, I can't wait for this meeting to be over. But if I understand, one of the things we teach in the sales crash course, and this will help you in dating, this will help you in getting jobs, it'll help you in selling, whatever, is learning how to mirror other people. And it's funny, I taught a saleswoman this. I was actually on my way to a business meeting last year, working with a local jeweler, and I was walking through the mall, and one of the sales kiosk ladies stops me and takes me through her spiel. And I said, "Hey, I'm not interested in your product, but can I give you some sales tips?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "Listen, I said, you did reciprocity, all that was right. I said, a couple of things you didn't do. You didn't size up your customer. You didn't qualify me as a customer. You went right into your sales pitch. There's certain things about the way, if you even look at how I'm dressed, you could probably assume that you should have gone for the woman who was standing next to me and not me. Not just because I'm a man, but yes, partially because I'm a man and her product was geared towards women. But the way I'm dressed gave off signals. Right. But then I talked to her about, I said, if you notice while you were talking, you got more and more comfortable with me as you were talking. She's like, yeah, I noticed. It was kind of like, I can't even really explain. I said, because I was doing something called mirroring. I was taking the energy that you were giving me and responding like you. What people like most about you is something that reminds them about themselves, period. And it goes the other way too. What people hate about you is something that they're afraid is true about themselves, and you bring it out, right? So one of my life coach actually says all the time, if you hate somebody for something, it's because you got it. I'm like, dang it. I hate cowards, which means I'm violently aware of my own cowardice, and I have to admit it. And I hate having a life coach. Making me do all this growth. Sorry, I unplugged my microphone. Making me do all this growth and getting stronger. I have coaches too, friends. I don't just sell it. I buy it too. Um, so keep that in mind. What people like most about you are the qualities that remind them of themselves. Never forget that. That's a huge piece there. But really, just take a look at yourself. How are you doing in agreeableness? Not in a judgmental way, not in a, oh crap, like in a, oh man, I've got some opportunities to improve here. I could tend probably to take some of mine down a little bit to protect myself. But at the same time, if you come into my inner, like the area of my life, the very small circle of my life of the issues that I care very deeply about, like if the test was able to kind of compartmentalize the different areas of your life and actually get me to focus on things that I deeply care about, my score would be a lot lower. It's just most of the things people care about in the world are things that don't really matter to me that much. I think people kind of get bent out of shape about things that aren't that serious. And then they complete, like I was going through what music did I want to pick for tonight's opening, and I was like, what are the top? Because I don't keep up with modern music, not because I think it sucks, just because when you have kids, you kind of start to live in a bubble. So I was like, what are the best rap songs of 2019? And they were all terrible, like content wise, not musically. Musically, they were fine, but just the content of them was. He's got hoes in the kitchen that he's nobody. What? Literally. Like some of your favorite artists talking about he's got hoes that nobody knows about. Like, why are you telling us? Let us keep not knowing about these hoes. I don't want to know about your hoes. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I want nothing to know. I want nothing to do with that. But anyway, that said, that covers the first half of our discussion tonight. Reminder, I'll also be doing an after party live stream tonight where we will be playing a little game called Bloodborne on Twitch. Right? I know that case looks a little bit different for the fans of the game, but it's a reversible case. And I always like to use the reverse sided cases because I like to be different and weird. Hippie says, damn life coach making me a better person. Right? So, questions. Let's get into the Q&A. We don't need to belabor this point or talk about me any longer. Let's talk about y'all. All right, hopefully I've given you something to chew on. Let's see. Josh Quinn says, on flexibility, I am in the median as well. I would be interested in learning about the other side of Ben. I think I might have heard he has this side before, but I do not know. Yeah. So read How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a good story. It's really rare for me to talk about a story being good. If you guys follow any of my video game hangouts, it's just me bitching about how much I hate stories. In video games, there are obviously great stories. I just think the writers in video games get a raw deal because the game is made first, and then they have to bake a story into it, and it just never comes out right. It comes across as disjointed, and it's got to be written so that 12-year-olds can understand it, which usually means I don't. Adam Bell says patience seems less about how angry you can get and much more how you can control and appropriate. Yeah, so everyone's going to get angry. Anger is a proper emotion. There are times where you should be angry, right? It's if you are given to anger at the slightest offense. That's something that you may want to look into. Great point, Adam. Andrew said, see, officer, what had happened was. Score on patience is 3.5. Makes sense on normal circumstances. Okay, Reading Dave says, I think I might have to find some assertiveness training due to how high. Yeah, exactly right. So if you're crazy high in assertiveness and you're crazy low in extroversion, chances are you're probably not that assertive. And that's okay because there's probably very few times in life where you have to be raw assertive, right? But you want to be able to be assertive when you need to be. But a lot of that starts with self-compassion, which Dave, you're one of our VIPs, so go back and go through the Unbreakable Confidence course. I think that'll help you a lot. I probably should do a self-compassion course as well, like Unbreakable Compassion. Probably should get deeper into that. Jack says, how to create Facebook ads that convert for local businesses 2019. This vid, man, is so good. Oh, sweet, man. Glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully it'll help you, man. What kind of business do you run? Josh Quinn says, that is mainstream hip hop for you. Yeah, I guess. I just feel like when I was growing up, mainstream hip hop was actually dope. I don't understand. I mean, I do understand a couple of things that happened. First of all, um, once hip hop established itself, like right around when Outkast came around and hip hop records really started killing it regularly, the money handlers understood that they could invest money into it and get results out of it. And the best way to get the most amount of people to listen to it is make it stupid, right? Any good hip hop manager, artist manager will tell you, don't make your content that deep if you want a lot of people to listen to it. Make it dumb. Dumb is my word. They say make it simple. Pick your poison, right? So when money started changing hands, that's where it changed. Then 9/11 happened, and 9/11 was really the jump off point. If you guys want to go back to where did all this PC culture stuff start and start to take off, two kind of perfect storms happened at the same time. Social media became prolific, meaning everybody has a voice. You should have to pass a test to have a voice. Secondly, um, 9/11 happens, right? So the PC culture, you can tie it back to 2001 and just see it go off the charts. Tie it back to 2001 where the internet, like that's where broadband first started coming into the fray. A couple years later we get MySpace, and then we get Facebook, and then it starts to take off, right? And that's where mainstream hip hop and mostly mainstream music, because I remember back in the 80s when I was a little kid, like mainstream music was dope. Like there were no people saying, well, that music sucks. Let me show you what's going on over here in the underground scene. Like, no, it was music was just dope. Um, but as it started to grow and balloon, and the more money that can be made off of it, the more they're going to try to turn it into a cookie cutter, release the same thing every year. Like I can point to hip hop songs between 50 Cent and Little Kim. They're the exact same song in terms of chord progressions and melody. They're just different lyrics. Candy Shop and Magic Stick are the same song. There you go. Right. Alyssa says, you have to be aware of your emotions so that you can use them to benefit you. All emotions can be beneficial. Yes. It's all about awareness and perspective. Very well said, Alyssa. So, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie? Yes. Do I have it handy? I can show it to you. I don't see it's on my bookshelf somewhere. Actually, I see it, but I can't reach it. Yeah, but if you just Amazon that, it'll come up. Josh Quinn says, um, old school hip hop sounded better. Well, some of it. I mean, some old school hip hop sucks too. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty old school hip hop that I can't stand. Uh, but a lot of it did not suck. Like a lot of it sucks now. But then, I mean, there's mainstream stuff that doesn't suck. I mean, some of the artists that were on that video montage that I watched that I thought their songs sucked, they make dope songs too. Drake was one of them. Drake was the one talking about hoes in hiding or whatever. I was like, better than this. Let's see. Mumble rappers are mostly garbage, in my opinion. I listen to 2000s and earlier rap. Yeah, do you guys know what I was listening to at the beginning of the show tonight? There's a little trivia for you. You can name the song. You should be able to name the artist, but if you can name the song, that's even better. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and a lot of the terrible hip hop from that era wasn't the popular stuff. All right. What other questions do you guys have? Let's keep it going. Remember, no questions are off the table. You guys can ask whatever's on your heart and or your mind. Yeah, and I'm tracking that the screen froze again, guys. But not to worry. That's why I keep my phone. Right, where's he? Is that all the questions tonight? Reading Dave says, okay, thanks for the direction. Right on. No problem, man. It's my pleasure. Hippie Mo says, I have a question. Give me a second. All right. I will give you a sec. No problem. Andrew says, just thinking. All right. No worries. Yeah, you guys don't have to ask questions. I just want to make sure that if you have them, you do get them in. Otherwise, we can get to the after party, man. You can go to the Twitch stream and start watching me suck at Bloodborne. Although Broken Suba said I did a pretty good job when he was helping me through the game earlier today. See, these are the kinks with. So for those of you who do want to sell products online, this is one of the things I teach is, get a good enough product that gives your customer an excellent experience. But don't worry, like these are the things we work out in beta testing, right? So we're doing this live stream, which becomes one of the lessons in our program. As long as the people get the content and appreciate the content, I'm less worried about the lighting and the visuals being amazing, and I'm more worried about them getting the content and being able to apply it. Down the road, you look at, okay, how do I sexify this thing once I've proven that people are actually interested in the product? Like, don't worry about making your product super sexy. I mean, obviously, if you're selling luxury items, that's a different thing. But if you're selling education, don't worry about making it sexy. Worry about making it effective. Worry about getting that email from the guy that's like, yo, my income went up $20,000 a year thanks to you. That's what I care about. I couldn't care less what the lighting looks like, right? That's a lesson for you all. Don't There's too many of you who want to be artists and do stuff like that. You're trying to make your stuff so perfect. You got to just start putting it out and stop trying to make everything so perfect because you're wasting time. You may be making something that an audience isn't even interested in because it took you 7 years to make this piece of art. By the time you get it out, you realize there's no market for it. You're screwed. Reading Dave says, I'm looking for a way where I can be protective of women without being an asshole. Give me a for instance. What's a situation where you were trying to be protective and you did come across as an asshole? Walk me through that. And then we can work to help you do the counter to that. I find that practical examples are often the best way to handle stuff like that. All right. Any of our other viewers? We still got quite a few people here. Questions? And like I said, your questions for you newcomers do not have to be related to what we talked about here tonight. It could be anything that you're thinking about. I have a question for you concerning psychology, says Adam Bell. I'm aware the five-factor model that you tend to use is definitely favored in research, but how do you feel about Jungian cognitive functions and less so? So I think Jung was a genius. Let's start there. I think a lot of what he tried to help us understand about our personas, about the way that our minds process information, about the way that we make decisions, which, by the way, are the temperaments that eventually turned into the Myers Briggs, right? So you're talking about intuition versus sensing and thinking versus feeling. The extroversion, extroversion, introvert, extrovert, judging, perceiving was added. But when he started talking about temperaments, he was talking very much about how we process information and how we make decisions. And the fact of the matter was that these cognitive functions, everyone has each of these functions and then uses them to differing degrees based upon, I think, people that follow the Big Five or the Hexaco test in this case, which is the next evolutionary step of that, tend to look at it from the perspective of some of that is genetic default settings and some of that is learned behavior, right? So one of the things you'll find on the internet when people try to assess me, which I think is hilarious, when people try to break me down based on a 20-minute video they watched as if they could sum up the whole of me, they'll try to say, oh, he favors sensing versus intuition, right? That's one that the internet, kind of the Myers-Briggs cult, um, was very adamant about trying to remind me of. And it was, well, the thing that you're not factoring in is that some of my presentation style is learned on the internet, right? It may not necessarily be my default. Like if you were sitting here in the room with me, the way that I present, the way that I communicate, the way that I come across may be quite a bit different than what you see me do on camera. So, because for example, one example that I give folks is on camera, I'm somewhat awkward. I am used to talking in front of crowds of people. Talking into a camera is somewhat awkward to me. So there's a discomfort in the way that I present. That doesn't necessarily come across because I come across as highly confident. But anyway, the point is, I think Jung had a lot of really good ideas with how we process. So, do you process information through the senses? Do you prefer that, or do you process more introspectively through intuition? Do you make decisions based upon outcomes, or that's the thinker kind of stereotype, or do you make decisions based upon people? That's the feeling. And at no point did I think Jung's intent was you are one or the other. You exist on a spectrum, which is what the Hexaco and the Big Five seem to advocate, at least the way I understand it. Um, and you fall somewhere on a spectrum of favoring one over the other, but you're both. You're never going to be all or nothing. And like if you tested me, for example, in intuition and sensing, I lean intuition, but I have a very strong part of me that's sensing. And some of that is learned behavior, going back to the example with Benjamin Franklin. Some of it is not. A lot of my conscientiousness, for example, is learned. It's not just genetic, right? Some of it is just learned based upon careers that I've had to hold, and there's ways that I've had to present myself based upon things that I've done. Um, so I think, let's see, let me get back up here. Um, I think looking into cognitive functions and understanding, like, um, the shadow versus kind of how you present yourself on the surface. And what I think Jung was trying to help people understand, it goes back to um, my podcast, I Am a Hero, I Am a Coward, I Am a Tyrant. Well, the moral of that story is I'm all three of them. And any one of those personas can come out based upon a given situation, right? And the one that's going to come out the most is the one that I feed, despite what my default setting might be, right? And that's where I think a lot of the cognitive functions come in. I argued for years that these cognitive functions could be developed, that you're not just stuck with them and you have to live in this box. That if you're aware that you are lacking, like I've had people actually tell me I couldn't tell if you were a thinker or a feeler, right? Well, if you test me, it's very clear on the test that I'm a thinker, but I know how to adjust behaviors. I know how to adjust my default setting to be adaptable to the environment that I'm in. So yeah, I think Jung was really onto something, understanding symbolism and understanding personas. And unfortunately, I just think a group of very good storytellers got a hold of what he was trying to convey and just turned it into this kind of horoscopy, cult following thing. That I'm just like, that's not. I think if Jung were still doing it, he'd be like, that's not what I. He would look at Myers Briggs the way Jean Baudrillard looks at the Matrix, right? He'd be like, no, that's not what I was getting at. And John Baudrillard, if you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, is the guy that wrote a book called Simulacrum and Simulation, and it's the book that the Matrix is loosely based upon. Um, and he was adamant that the Wachowski brothers totally missed the point, but I don't think that they were trying to completely say the book is the book was just source material. I don't think they were trying to say this is our interpretation of the book. It's the book had some really good points that we put into a film. Steve, what's up, man? Shredder Steve's in the house. Good to see you, bro. Elizabeth Henry says, hello, I'm an INFJ, and I just wanted to say that I've enjoyed your videos. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm glad you have. Hopefully I'll be able to continue to serve you with content going forward. Hippie Mo says, I think that I've come to the realization that I do not have anyone close to whom I can talk about closely. I know that I have talked to you about this in the past, about friends. It sucks, and I don't know what to do exactly, and it gets lonely. I've tried talking with my friends about more in depth conversations, and they refuse, and I can't connect with them well anymore. It's like I have no idea how to find new friends that are close. Name what are your three favorite things to do right now in life? Let's start there. Elizabeth Henry says, do you generally get along with INFJs as an ENTJ? I've read that the two may have difficulty getting along, but from my perspective, there's a lot. So I don't subscribe to this Myers-Briggs type struggles with this Myers-Briggs type. I would say based upon what we talked about tonight, that if I have trouble getting along with anybody, it's because I lack the the traits listed here on this test. Um, Disagreeable people are hard to get along with. I don't care what their four-letter Myers-Briggs code is. I literally can get along with anybody that's not an asshole. Period. 100%. I am very easy to get along with, and I find it easy to get along with most people. Where I find it hard to get along with people has a lot less to do with their personality type and way more to do with their values. So, for example, if you're an entitled person, you're going to bother me, right? If you're a spoiled, entitled asshole, I'm just not going to like you and we're not going to get along. It doesn't matter what your Myers-Briggs code is. I don't subscribe to the this type. And I think what's happened is someone got into a disagreement and then they heard, oh, it's a personality conflict, which I usually argue, no, it's a values conflict, which goes deeper than personality. I think personality gets built upon values. And so, um, and vice versa in some cases. But the point is, I think what they found is, oh, me and this person hate each other and they're this type. And so now we have a correlation. Like, yes, at one point an INFJ and an ENTJ didn't get along. So it must be because it's an ENTJ and an INFJ. And I think that's correlation. I don't think it's in any way at all causation. Um, I think people that are hard to get along with aren't honest. I think they don't respect other people. And I think that they have an entitled attitude that what I want and what I think is more important than other people. That in a nutshell is what makes a person hard to get along with. It has nothing to do with the fact that you might be less extroverted and I'm way more extroverted. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I just think the Myers-Briggs is a convenient scapegoat for us trying to oversimplify how hard it is sometimes for humans to get along because we're so selfish and self-absorbed sometimes. Adam Bell says, that's how I feel too. The MBTI focuses on the individual categories as trash, but the functions very accurately describe behavior, thought processes, and help me understand myself a lot. Are you ENTJ? Yes, I am. Yeah, and so what I usually caution people with the cognitive functions piece is, they'll say, here are the cognitive function stacks for an ENTJ, right? So it's Nefi, Tenny, I think. Is it? It's Tenny. It's TN. It's extroverted thinking and then introverted intuition. I think are our top stack. Blah blah blah. The challenge is when you look at all of the cognitive functions and you look at what Jung was subscribing to, at least from what I understand. Far be it from me to call my by no means an expert. Um, I think he was getting at you have some gumbo mixture of all of these functions and how you use them is tied to whatever your predisposition is, whether you look at it genetically or you think it's nature or nurture or some combination of both. The new science tends to believe that it's way more nature and then partially nurture. But it was you need to be aware of all these other parts of you that create the shadow, for example, and et cetera, et cetera. But even then, I think it can be somewhat limiting because if you looked at my cognitive functions, there are certain things that absolutely do not apply to me. They just don't. And I think trying to say because you're this means you're going to be this, I just think you get into troubled water because now you're starting to stereotype based upon experience, which can be effective, but you're always going to find outliers. Right? So, for example, ENTJs are not supposed to like public displays of affection. Couldn't care less. Right, and that's such a stereotypical thing to say because some of that's cultural. Like if you go to the Middle East, and that's why I love the hexacode test is because it's cross-cultural. If you go to the Middle East and watch two men have a conversation, I don't give a damn what their Myers-Briggs is. Those dudes are going to hold hands when they talk. They're going to have public displays of affection that are very homo erotic obsessed. Men are afraid to be thought of as gay in our culture, which is stupid. We won't do that. I've never held hands with any of my friends in a conversation. I've watched two grown ass men in the Middle East hold hands and look into each other's eyes when they talk like they're on a date, and they were not gay. That is how they embraced each other, right? So, And ENTJ in that culture would be completely different because culturally they do that despite what my cognitive function says I'm supposed to do or not do. And that's, I don't like subscribing to anything that says because you're this, then all these things have to happen. Right? Even in the Hexaco test, it's just suggestions. It's like if you score low, there's a tendency that you're going to think this way. Right? But then there's always exceptions to the rule. And where what I find is people deal way too much with what I think a lot of Myers-Briggs fans need to study is way less Myers-Briggs and way less cognitive functions and way more cognitive biases and logical fallacies. Because if you study that and understand the way your brain actually works biochemically, you'll see why people are so bent on forcing people into these overly simplified categories. So that I can easily define you and put you on the shelf, and I don't have to use the glycogen in my brain to process things that are way more complicated than I am comfortable with them being. Period. And that is why Myers Briggs has caught on so much because it's so dumbed down, watered down, and overly simplified that it's easy for everybody to wrap their head around it. And then it leads to the cognitive bias of the certainty bias, and then the confirmation bias, and then the commitment consistency bias. And you can just watch when I see people get into, and it's not just Myers Briggs, it's politics, it's religion, it's anything. And I can just pick out that bias, that bias, that bias, that bias. Right? I think people would do well to study how the brain works beyond just psychology. Like, look at how the biology works. Let's see. Did I miss a question from? Did Hippie Mo answer my question? Uh oh. Oh, snap. Until I5. Sorry, my son sending me his birthday wish list. Ooh, heck no. Sorry. Had to take care of a family thing real quick. Adam Bell says horoscopy cult. It's astrology for people who think they're scientific. Yo, Hip, did you listen to my podcast about how to make friends as an adult? You might want to listen to that one, bro. Yeah, and so to answer Elizabeth's question way more simply, I don't think I've met an INFJ that I don't get along. Not once. In fact, I'm pretty close to a number of them. That makes sense. Let's see. Andrew says, I know we normally ask questions about us for you to answer, but you said your boy had ADHD. That really hit home for me. I thought I outgrew mine, but I learned badly how to cope with it. Yeah, man. Tough. Certainly didn't help that his dad didn't want to accept it until his mom made his dad accept it, which thank God for my wife. She's freaking amazing. Jessica says, thank you for this live chat. Thank you, Jessica. Good to see you over here. Awesome. Okay, will do, Drew. I appreciate that, man. Adam Bell says, hey, a good book I started reading about how to deal and understand ADHD is by a guy named Gabor Mate called Scattered Ghosts. Guys, okay, cool. Okay, Hippie Mo says top three things I like. Philosophical conversations. I find it very fascinating to learn what people's opinions are. I love music, play piano and sing. And third would be working on creative projects. Okay, so here's what we do, man. And I'm going to tell you, bro, from dealing with you and working with you and coaching with you, one of the other problems you are probably faced with is that you are an old soul. Have you ever heard that term before? You may need to start looking at hanging out with people who are older than you. Like one of my closest friends slash brothers, who's also been my business partner for God knows how long. I mean, this dude's 10 years older than me. And his friends that I hang with are older than him. So that's one of my inner, like almost all of my inner circle is people older than me. I think inside my inner circle of people who are closest to me, there's very few cats who are younger than I am. The reason why is that naturally, and don't get me wrong, there are people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are completely immature and ridiculous. But the point is, you probably need to get around an older crowd. Like you're in college, bro, so you're around a lot of like I couldn't imagine, and I've heard stories of soldiers coming back from war and then going to college and being like, "You got to be effing kidding me. These bitch ass children complain about everything." And this is probably a guy that's had to deal with friends getting killed, and these kids are complaining that the dorm is too hot or whatever BS thing that they bitch about. Right? So you may find that the things that you're into suits an older, more mature crowd that your younger friends just aren't going to be into, right? So you may not just want to pursue, and I don't mean just age, but you want to pursue creating relationships with people who are into more what you're into. Like use Meetup. Like, is there a meetup that gets together to discuss philosophy or like book clubs, things that more mature people are into, right? And that doesn't mean like you can't be into other things that are fun and immature, but like a couple things here. Music. Why don't you start doing open mic nights? Go do some music and hang out with other musicians, right? Hang out with people. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, someone that has the courage to get up on stage is gonna have some level of intestinal fortitude and bravery that's gonna create a certain level of maturity. Certainly, there are musicians who are wildly immature, but put yourself in situations where you can meet other people. Like, where are you going to meet these people who are not meeting your emotional needs? And if you just keep going to the same places where you're meeting these people who don't want to connect with you, you've got to change it up. You've got to go to meetups, go to book clubs, right? Go to Toastmasters. All of you that talk about struggling with assertiveness and lack of self confidence, all of you should join Toastmasters right now. Like, find one, go to Google, look up Toastmasters near me, go to the next meeting that they have. You'll meet a rack of people in there. All of them will probably be older than you, but they'll come from all walks of life, business owners, professional public speakers, all that stuff. Get into other things, get out of your comfort zone. Otherwise, you're never going to engage or meet the people that could fill that emotional void that you have, that you feel lonely because you're around people who just don't have the focus that you have. And trust me, I get it, bro. I've been making internet content since the 90s. So I get that a lot of what I talk about is not worthy of a billion views. And sometimes that can be lonely even as a creator, right? As a creative type where you're trying to make something for people that's not what most people would click on. And so you do I can I'm saying that to say I can empathize with that. God, I wish there were more people who were into having these discussions, especially because I'm hosting these discussions to help people navigate their lives, right? Whereas they'd rather be watching whatever it is they watch. I don't know. So get out of your comfort zone, man. That's where you're going to start to meet people. Elizabeth Henry says, I'll check out the hexacode test. Cool. Yeah. And so, link in the description if you want to take it. There's the link in the description of this video. It'll take you right to it. Hippie Mo says, like animation, drawing, visual effects. Elizabeth Henry says, according to MBTI, I'm a feeler, but my introverted thinking and introverted intuition seem to dominate me internally. Okay. It's good that you're aware of that. Broken Suba says, I'm an INFJ, and there's at least one more present, and we seem to get along, to give you an example. Adam Bell says, great answer, brother. Thanks. Yeah, man. Great questions, all of you. Great questions. I appreciate you. Elizabeth Henry says, I've been practicing getting out of my comfort zone in order to grow, and you will certainly grow. Adam Bell says, yeah, INFJs are amazing, but you can rarely find them in public, especially because I'm an INTJ and I don't go out in public. Hippie says, I literally just figured out my true relations with my friends. Like, yeah, and so, Hip, let me take some pressure off you two, because you are straight up a young dude, right? Just take it easy. you're getting you're getting some pretty heavy discoveries at a very young age. Like, biochemically your brain is not even finished developing yet. I'm not saying that to make you feel like a child. I'm saying 25 is when that happens. Okay, give or take. And so you're still going through changes and you're getting some pretty profound discoveries at a very young age that most people don't figure out until they're in their 30s and realize they're still partying every weekend when they should be getting after something else in life. So be grateful for the loneliness because it's going to drive you to do some things differently that are going to lead you to some places that you really like, but you'll struggle to get there if you're so focused on what you lack and so focused on how hard it is. Be grateful that you've had this discovery and look at it as an opportunity to now go out and meet other people and connect with other people in a way that's more meaningful to you. Right? Be glad that you're having this loneliness now and not in your 30s, right? Lissa says you could be pen pal. See? Just coming on this call got you exposed to some folks, man. Elizabeth Henry said it'd be nice to converse with you all sometime in group chat. Link in the description. Shameless plug for the Good Life Playbook. Let's see. Adam Bell says, okay, good. Adam Bell's responding to hip. Josh Quinn Andrews says, sounds similar to what I read Dr. Nerdlove answered to a person whom I think had trouble being around people his own age. Yeah, my wife's an old soul too. She hangs out with 60-year-old ladies. We are nowhere near 60, I'll tell you that right now. I mean, she hangs out with people our age too, but she used to sing in a choir, and she was by far the youngest person there. Elizabeth Henry says, Brian Chambers, do you give advice? Are you talking about in the good? Yes, absolutely. So we have a private Facebook group associated with the courses, and this video that we're shooting tonight is one of the lessons in a course called Understanding Your Personality. Um, but yeah, so I'm working to build. There's a ton of people in the program who aren't on the Facebook group yet. I'm working to get them all there. But yeah, I share things there in those public groups that I don't usually share everywhere else. Not because I don't want to share it with everyone else, but because I know the people in those groups will actually read it or watch the hour-long seminar and discuss it. Um, and I believe in getting eclectic knowledge. So we get knowledge from a lot of different places. Like I actually posted a Seinfeld documentary that I wanted everybody to watch so that they could understand how painful success actually can be. And not in a bad way, just the pain that you have to go through to be successful at anything, right? And just to really prepare. One of the things that I do that I've done for years as a coach is not sugarcoat. Like one of the things, and I actually got into a debate with one of my coaches years ago at a seminar he was coaching about selling shortcuts and selling it's easy. And yeah, that's great when you're marketing because it gets people attention and gets them to click by saying 3 easy steps to become a billionaire or whatever. But nothing is easy. And he's like, yes, it is. And his interpretation of it was correct, but it sets the mind up for eventual failure. If I don't take the risk of turning away clicks and just being honest with the people who will click because they actually want to take action, like that's always been a dilemma of mine. Like I totally know how to market things to get people to click on it and buy stuff and I'm quick to tell someone don't buy it because with your mindset it's not going to work. I've had those folks, but um I tend to post things and I want people to start getting knowledge from a lot of different places and being able to apply that to your life and understand that success ain't easy, man. I tell like one of the things I tell people in the group all the time is if you're not willing to bleed for your dream, you don't have a dream yet. I don't know if Brian has a Discord already. I'm fairly new to the channel, but maybe that's something uh, You could think. So somebody set up a Discord for our community. I think it was my one of my editors. I think Tony has a Discord set up. I don't typically go there. I was using Zoom to do like right now the Good Life Playbook. We don't do live like one-on-one calls anymore. Our VIPs, like people like Alyssa and Reading Dave, um, Hippie Mo, our VIPs used to get live coaching from me like this, but we could actually talk to each other through Zoom. Right now, we haven't added that to the Good Life Playbook, but we do have the lessons. We do have the private Facebook group where I will post advice and people can ask questions. Adam Bell says, I'd be a great community organizer and moderator. No, I would not. I don't have the time for it. Like, I carve out time for you guys here and to do some live streams on Twitch, but with my life, I do not have the time to be hanging out on Discord, unfortunately. I wish I did. I do it all the time. And I'm a terrible community organizer because I'm not a very social person. Very extroverted, but not very chit chatty. Do I give advice one on one? Not anymore. It's just too time consuming. There are like business owners who have brought me on to do it, but it's very time consuming and very expensive. So I don't do one on one advice anymore. But people in my private Facebook group can ask questions, and I always answer them, or at the very least, point you to an answer if I don't have one. Hippie Mo says, I also saw Rocky for the first time. That movie is amazing. It's a great movie, man. Yeah, I do believe either Steven, one of my editors, has a Discord set up for our community and they manage it, but I am rarely there. I think Steven was actually hosting it, and then VIPs outside of the coaching environment, our VIPs had separate meetings that they had because I'm a stickler for if you're in one of my programs and you're in here in this private group with all these other people, everyone needs to be working together and collaborating. And so I think Steven was running our Discord, and that's where he was hosting those conversations. And every once in a while, I try to like jump in and jump on the call. I did once or twice, but I rarely have time to do it. So I know there is at least, and then there's another Discord. I started a community back in the day when I used to run my video game website many years ago. I used to run something called the RPG Club, which was like a book club for RPG nerds where we play games and discuss them together. And then there was two cool cats from my community on YouTube who took the RPG Club and ran with it. Now they run it on Reddit and they have a Discord. It's freaking awesome, and it's cool because like guys I went to high school with are in the club, who weren't on my website when I started it. They came later. So it's pretty cool. I also don't have time for that, unfortunately. I've tried to connect with them, and I'm just like, I'm gonna let you guys run it. I don't have time. But I miss that, man. It was fun. Okay. Anybody else got questions? Questions. I'm trying to scroll through here to make sure I'm not missing anything. I think we can close off the Hexaco test now. If there's no more questions, I'm gonna get ready to Twitch stream and then go to bed. Alyssa says, I made my boyfriend watch the art 90s movie Clueless. Um, he couldn't hate it, but I didn't tell him why it was he actually. I liked that movie. What? Why would he? Why would he hate it? I like Clueless. I thought that was a good movie. Plus, I used to have a crush on Stacey Dash. Probably had something to do with it. Even though she was like 50 when she made that movie, she's way older than she looks. And I'm joking. She wasn't 50 back then. She was like 30. I think she's in her 50s now or pushing 60 or something. Elizabeth Henry says, okay, I'd like to attend medical school. Awesome. And would like perhaps some book suggestions as I have a bit of anxiety concerning the course load. I'll be a graduating biochemistry major in the spring, but I have anxiety about doing well in med school. I am going to let Alyssa respond to that. I think she is particularly skilled at helping you with your very specific situation, as she has been dealing with one very similar herself. And that's awesome. Congrats on your graduation. That's outstanding. I know biochemistry is not easy. In fact, if you can get through biochemistry, heck, good to go with med school. Yeah, see, Adam says the same thing. All right, we got a gang of people watching. I know somebody else has questions. I'm telling y'all, I'm going to bounce if there's no more questions. I'm going to give Alyssa a chance to respond to Elizabeth. Obviously, I won't hang up before that gets squared away. Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. Awesome. Well, so while we're waiting for Alyssa to respond with some of the specifics, let me encourage you just a little bit. What's happening in your body, and you'll appreciate this as a biochemistry major, what's going on in your body biochemically when you say you feel anxious or nervous is almost identical to what your body experiences when you're excited. Right? So one of the things you can do, one of the exercises I take people through in our VIP program is removing limiting beliefs. So instead of saying, I'm so anxious, I'm so anxious, I'm so anxious, frame it as what I really am is excited. And certainly there's some anxiety there. I'm not discrediting that. But what you truly are is excited about the opportunity, but you're also nervous about the potential of not accomplishing your goal or having a hard time. But the truth is, any hard time you have is one going to make you stronger and make you more resilient and make you a better doctor. So you want to welcome some of that struggle. But you also want to recognize that it's not all anxiety. Some of what you're feeling is huge excitement for the opportunity to do something that's very important to you. And the more you focus on that, remember, it's like what Buddha says, you become what you focus on. So if you focus on the excitement and the opportunity and the chance to get stronger, and yes, to embrace even the hard parts, you'll still feel the anxiety, but you won't be crippled by it. Okay? You'll be able to move through the anxiety, embrace the excitement, and put in the work, even though you may be a little bit afraid. Hopefully that's helpful. Difficulty explaining my reasoning behind doing things in a way that others even accept, even though I'm generally correct concerning my assumptions. Yeah, so I'll tell you what I'd tell my son who has ADHD and dyslexia. The fact that it's harder for you is going to make you a better doctor. So look at the way your brain processes as a blessing instead of a curse. The fact that you think differently means you're going to have to work harder. Yeah, school is centered around very sensor like activities. Good. It's harder for you. Good. That means you're going to have to work harder. Good. That means you're going to be better and stronger when you come out on the other end. So what you're seeing as a curse and a I don't fit in is actually your gateway to get to where you want. It's one of those things from the book, The Obstacle is the Way. Your problem is actually your solution to get to where you want to go. And you need to frame it as such instead of being afraid of it. So having ADHD and dyslexia is a blessing, not a curse. Exactly. Yeah. You guys got to start looking at you got to start understanding that the world is working for you, not to you. You weren't cursed with ADHD and dyslexia. They're gifts. They make you have to work harder, which guess what means you deserve more because you worked harder. Michael Jordan's jump shot sucked when he joined the NBA. He had to work harder than other naturally talented athletes, and we're still talking about this dude 30 effing years later as the best person that's ever played basketball in the history of basketball. Right? Start seeing your shortcomings as gifts, not hindrances. I have chronic PTSD. Good. It means I have a big heart for people that are going through that. And it means I have to work harder sometimes to just exist. So what? Good. I'm stronger for it. Absolutely. Top of what you said about working harder, you also have the unique opportunity to think radically different than your peers, which, depending on the field you go into, can mean yes, absolutely, 100%. It's a blessing, not a curse. Dark Blossom says, "Great, well said, Adam. That's outstanding, brother." Dark Blossom says, "I'm going to college to become a psychologist and maybe a writer in the future. I have many things I worry about that may get in the way of my success. Is my lack of productivity being one?" It looks like Dark Blossom's comment got cut off. Yep. Well said, Josh Quinn. Jeffrey Sherman says, "LOL at hyperfocus." Facts. Yeah. Cool. Everybody has a weird personality, Dark Blossom. You're not as your personality is probably not as unique as you think it is. Everybody's weird in their own way. Yeah, no worries, Elizabeth. No worries. We're happy to do it. And you should join the rest of our community so you can have that type of interaction regularly. Let's see. Josh Quinn says, "Question just out of curiosity. How would one turn autism from a weakness to a strength?" That's a hard one to answer because autism can manifest in a number of different ways depending on where you are in the spectrum. Um, and when you talk about strength, right? There's so many. The question is a little bit too broad um, for me to answer with anything that I think is going to be valuable to you, right? Because who, first of all, who said autism was a weakness, and in what category, what compartment of life are we talking about it being a weakness, right? Oh, Elizabeth, I was talking about the Good Life Playbook community. The first link in the description there will tell you more about it. Um, let's see. So I don't see autism immediately as a weakness. And then how do you turn it into a strength? Well, there are certain things that people with autism are generally predisposed to being stronger at. And it's focusing on those strengths and highlighting them, whatever they may be for that individual. Whether it's cognitive processing of things that are way complicated for people whose brains aren't wired that way. Um, you know, I think instead of looking at it as a weakness outright and trying to turn it into a strength, it's just understanding what about autism gives a person some natural strengths that they can use to their advantage. Like someone pretty high on the spectrum, I bet you would make a dope nuclear physicist, just as an example. All right, last call for questions. I appreciate all the comments, man. You all are awesome. But last call for questions that you want me to answer. And then if not, I'm going to get up out of here. Oh, I asked you all a question at the beginning of the stream. Now, I know most of you weren't here when I typed it, but what is the best way? How do you all like to stay connected? Because I want to chat with you all outside of these videos. I probably spend the most amount of time on Facebook. But is there a place where you would like to follow me and engage with me that is useful and effective and easy for you to use? Are you just not really a social media person and don't care? I'd like to know what is the platform that's best for us to stay in touch and to have conversations. And I'm on pretty much every social media platform except for Snapchat and Pinterest. Even though I do have a Snapchat account, I don't use Snapchat. Um, Elizabeth Henry says Facebook. Okay, cool. Facebook chat if you didn't see it. Roger that. On Suba, Hippie Mo says Facebook. Okay, cool. All right. Well, Facebook's the one I prefer to use. So my Facebook page, if you guys aren't already there, and I know like Jessica Nugent, I see her all the time on my posts, so that's cool. Um, Mine is if you look up Bryant Chambers page, don't send a friend request to my personal account. I never use it. I don't go on it. I don't want anything to do with it. I just use my page. So just like and follow the page, and you can always just message me there if you want to talk to me. Um, all right, so Facebook. Okay. So I know a lot of people like to use Twitter. I have a Twitter. I don't necessarily do much with it. Wrong Peach 22 says, "Hey Bryant, I'm kind of having a midlife crisis at the age of 17. What? Is it a bad idea to halt everything and try to work on my mental health and figure out what I want to do in life?" So first of all, let's break that down. Um, you're 17. Is it a good idea to focus on mental health? 100%. Yes. But the second half of your question is, and figure out what I want to do in your life. You are 17. You're not going to have what you want to do with your entire life figured out at 17. You're going to have some ideas of things you might like. 17 is time to go out and start trying things and see if you like them. And I think American society specifically puts way too much pressure on young people. Like, by the time you get finished with high school, you're an adult and you're 18. You need to have your life figured out, where you're going to college and the job you're going to get. It's like, slow down, bruh. Calm down. It's not that serious. I work with people 20 years older than me. They're still figuring out they've done a lot of great things, but they're still figuring out, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I'm going to try this. Right? Sea life is more of an adventure, not some puzzle that you're supposed to have figured out by the time you're 18. That might be causing some of your mental health issues. You're putting unnecessary and undue pressure on yourself. So relax, try things. If you have things that you're curious about or interested in, try them. See if you like them. See if you're actually good at them. Try things and let the results of trying them tell you more about what you should do with your life than you trying to figure it out like it's a puzzle that you can solve. I think that causes people more undue stress and craziness than anything is this idea that you have to have life figured out. It's not a thing that you figure out. Right? If you went back and found 1993 version of me talking on message forums before the internet existed, that I was going to be on YouTube live streaming some video service, like I would have told you you were crazy. I was still running around with a VHS camcorder trying to make funniest home videos to get on that show. I wouldn't have thought there was, you know what I mean? Like don't try to have all that figured out. You'll stress yourself out. Just try things at 17, see what you like, take notes, and figure it out as you go. Which, by the way, is what everybody's doing, even the people that pretend to have it all figured out. And if someone's putting pressure on you to have it all figured out, ask them what their life's purpose is and tell them to explain it to you in one sentence or less. And if they can't do that, they don't have their life figured out. Put the pressure back on them if they're putting it on you. Let's see. Reading Dave says Facebook works for me. I'd be willing to explore. Cool. No need to explore. I'm really just asking what works for you guys because I'm on all the platforms. Ron Peach says, I know what you mean. My parents are put. Yep, I had a feeling it was the parents. Yeah, ask mom and dad what their life's purpose is. And if they have it figured out, great. Ask them how they figured it out. And if they had it figured out at 17. Freaking ridiculous. Let me find you. I don't want people to know who I am. Okay, that's cool. Great question, by the way, Pete. Yeah, the only thing I'd caveat what Adam Bell said to Peach is a lot of times your parents aren't trying to make it hard on you. They actually very much care about you and they want you to have a life that you're satisfied with and happy with. And sometimes as parents, we make decisions out of fear or anxiety that our kids are going to have a harder time if we don't push them. Right? It's not a lot of times the pressure they're applying isn't coming from a bad place. Right? And I assume with your parents that's probably true. Just know that you getting pushed is not going to make you figure your life out any faster. The truth of the matter is you have to, ask your parents. Like you don't have to make it an antagonistic thing. Like ask them, like, have you ever had a part of your career that you hated? Tell me about it, because I would like to avoid that. You know what I mean? And they can walk you through what did they hate about it, what didn't go right, and what did they learn from it that you could apply to your life now in your experimentation phase and trying to figure out who you are. Right? So that's what I would say to that. All right. If there's no other questions, I'm going to give it 30 more seconds and I'm getting up out of here. So, last call and I'm out. I love that my podcast, "Fun is Overrated," is the next thing that comes up after this video. That's funny. Jessica Nugent says, "Have to go. Thanks again. This and the community have been great. Thanks, Jessica. Good to see you." All right, 30 seconds is up. If you guys want to hit me, if you got questions you didn't get answered, just hit me up on Facebook, Bryant Chambers page. Um, you can also hit me on Instagram. It's harder to have a conversation there because I have to two finger tap it, but I'm willing to do it if that's what you prefer. Um, so yeah, I pray tonight's talk went a long way to, in some way, shape, or form, make your life even just a little bit better. If so, then we win. Thank you all for being here. I say it all the time on my podcast. I'll say it here too that you could have spent your time literally anywhere else, but you came and hung here. So I really appreciate all of you for doing that. And being a part here. You'll never understand just how much that means to me. It means the world to me that you guys would hang out. If you'd like to continue hanging out with me, I'll be on Twitch. In fact, I'll give you the link to it here so you can find it. You don't have to go looking for it. Um, Twitch.tv/Brian Chambers. We're going to hang out, play some Bloodborne. This is how I'll wind down for the evening because usually a talk like this will get me fired up and then I can't sleep. So I'm going to play some video games to mellow out. Get ready to go to bed. Like I said, all the administrative notes, thanks for being here. Love you guys dearly. I want you to stay strong. The book that we talked about tonight, The H Factor of Personality, link in the description. The Hexaco Test, link in the description. And our Good Life Playbook. The Netflix of personal and professional development is only $12 a month while we are still in the beta. I highly encourage everybody in the sound of this video get into the program while it's $12. I can't tell you how many people have kicked themselves with other programs that I've run when I do raise the price, and I will raise the price because it'll have to be at a higher price down the road to be able to afford a lot of the things that we want to do with it, to invest money back into the program. So right now it's $12 a month. Once we get to the nucleus of people that I'm going to let in, because we're only letting in a certain number of people and then we're cutting it off, and we're getting closer and closer to that. Every day we're getting new people signing up. And as we get closer and closer to that, once we hit the number, then we're going to shut it down. The price will jump from $12 to $100 a month. No BS. The program is already worth that much. It's going to go up to that much. Good news, if you get in at the $12 a month, you will always and forever, throughout eternity, pay $12 a month, even when the price raises for new customers to $100 a month. I never raise prices on existing customers. That is one of the policies of the programs that I run. So, with that in mind, I love you all dearly. Remember forever that we are stronger than I. And I'll see you back here next week. Same bad time, same bat channel, 9 p.m. Tuesday. What is that? The 29th, I believe. Something along those lines. Anyway, stay strong. I'll see the rest of you on Twitch who decide to hang out there. I'll see the rest of you in the Good Life Playbook program. And we'll go from there. Peace.